the night a congresswoman destroyed a Fox News host. Picture this. It's a typical Tuesday night on Fox News. The studio lights are blazing. The cameras are rolling, and Greg Gutfeld is sitting behind his desk with that signature smirk, ready to take down another liberal politician. But in the next 30 seconds, everything would change. What happened next didn't just go viral. It rewrote the rules of political combat forever. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had walked into that Fox News studio expecting tough questions about her criminal justice reform bill. She was prepared for policy debates, maybe some partisan back and forth. What she wasn't expecting was for Gutfeld to cross a line that would ignite a firestorm and change both of their careers forever. But here's the thing about Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't walk into any room unprepared. The setup, let me paint you the full picture of what led to this explosive moment. Gutfeld had built his entire career on being Fox News' provocateur-in-chief. At 59, he was a guy who said what others wouldn't, the conservative comedian who mixed political commentary with edgy humor that walked right up to the line of what's acceptable on television. His show was crushing traditional late-night hosts in the ratings, and he knew exactly how to play his audience. Sitting across from him was 43-year-old Jasmine Crockett from Texas, a former public defender turned congresswoman who had been making waves in Washington. She wasn't your typical politician. She climbed her way up from Texas courtrooms, fighting for clients who couldn't afford fancy lawyers, watching the justice system fail people who looked like her, and deciding to do something about it. The interview started normally enough. Crockett was there to discuss her bill aimed at reducing mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. But Gutfeld had other plans. For the first 10 minutes, he kept making jokes about woke politics and questioning whether she understood real America. You could feel the tension building. Crockett pushed back on his characterization of her bill as soft on crime, and that's when Gutfeld made a decision that would define both their careers. The moment everything changed. You know what, Congresswoman? Gutfeld said, leaning forward with that condescending tone he's famous for. If you don't like how we do things in America, maybe you should go back to where you came from. The studio fell dead silent. The audience, usually quick to laugh at Gutfeld's provocations, sat in stunned silence. Even his regular panelists looked uncomfortable. But Crockett? She didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply smiled. And that smile should have been Gutfeld's first warning that he had just made a catastrophic mistake. The response that changed everything. Mr. Gutfeld, she said, her voice steady and clear, I think you just gave me the perfect opportunity to educate you and your viewers about something very important. The camera zoomed in on her face, capturing the confidence in her eyes. This wasn't a politician scrambling for damage control. This was someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Gutfeld tried to backtrack. Well, I mean, if you're not happy with American policies... But Crockett held up her hand, and something in that gesture commanded respect. No, Mr. Gutfeld. You said what you said, and now I'm going to respond. Then she reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out what looked like a folded piece of paper. Because, you see, I actually did some research before coming on your show tonight, and I found something very interesting about where people should go back to. Social media was already exploding. Clips of Gutfeld's Go Back comment were spreading across Twitter faster than wildfire. But nobody was prepared for what Crockett was about to unleash. The genealogy bomb. She unfolded the paper with deliberate precision, her movements calculated for maximum dramatic effect. You know, Greg, may I call you Greg? You told me to go back to where I came from. Well, I'm from Dallas, Texas, born and raised. But I'm curious about your background. She looked directly into the camera, speaking not just to Gutfeld, but to millions of viewers. Because according to public records, your family immigrated here just 2 generations ago. So if we're talking about going back to where we came from, maybe we should start there. The studio erupted, not in laughter, but in shocked gasps. Gutfeld's face went from pale pink to deep red. He tried to interrupt, but Crockett was just getting started. Your great-grandfather immigrated to America in 1923. That makes you a 3rd-generation American, Greg. Meanwhile, my family has been in Texas since the 1880s. The power dynamic had completely shifted. The hunter had become the hunted, and everyone could feel it, the teaching moment. But Crockett wasn't done. She understood this was bigger than just defending herself. This was about defining what it means to be American. So if we're planning to go back where you came from game, technically, you should be heading back to Eastern Europe long before I should be going anywhere. But here's the thing, Greg. I don't think you should go anywhere, because that's not what America is about. Gutfeld tried desperately to regain control. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I was talking about political philosophy. Oh, you want to talk about values? Crockett's eyes lit up like a prosecutor who'd just gotten a confession. Let's talk about the value of treating people with respect. Let's talk about the value of doing your homework before you try to humiliate someone on national television. Then she pulled out her phone, and Gutfeld's face went pale. The research receipts. I also looked into your show's content over the past year. Do you know how many times you've told someone to go back where they came from or made similar comments? 47 times. And do you know what every single one of those targets had in common? The pause was devastating. She let the question hang just long enough for everyone to figure out the answer. They were all people of color, Greg. Every single one. Isn't that interesting? The audience was completely captivated. This wasn't just a political interview anymore. It was a masterclass in how to handle bullies and fight back against racism with intelligence and preparation. The power move. Then came the moment that sealed Gutfeld's fate. As he tried one more desperate attempt to regain control, calling her response typical Washington and a victim narrative, Crockett stood up from her chair. Suddenly, she was looking down at him while he remained seated behind his desk like a scolded child. I'm not just a congresswoman, Greg. I'm a former public defender who spent 10 years in Texas courts fighting for justice. I'm a daughter of a veteran who served this country for 20 years. I'm a product of Dallas public schools who earn a law degree through hard work and determination. And yes, I'm a black woman who refuses to be silenced by casual racism disguised as political commentary. But she had one final surprise. The ultimate mic drop. While you were preparing to attack my character tonight, I was actually doing something productive. I was working with Republican senators on bipartisan criminal justice reform that has support from police chiefs, prosecutors, and victim advocacy groups across the country. She held up her phone. In fact, I got a message just before coming on your show from Senator Tom Cotton, not exactly known as a liberal, telling me our bill has enough votes to pass. The mention of Tom Cotton, one of the most conservative senators in Congress, was a master stroke. She wasn't just defending herself. She was proving she was more effective at governing than he was at commentary. So, while you're here playing racial politics for your audience, I'm actually getting things done for the American people. The final warning. But Crockett saved the best for last. With that same calm smile that had started this whole exchange, she delivered her final blow. Oh, and Greg, one more thing. That genealogy research also showed something else interesting about your family history. But I think I'll save that for another time. Unless, of course, you like to have a real conversation about immigration, about belonging, about what it means to be American. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. She had more ammunition, and she wasn't afraid to use it. When Gutfeld made one last desperate attempt to regain control, Crockett offered him an olive branch, a chance to have a real conversation about her criminal justice reform bill, about working together instead of tearing each other down. But Gutfeld chose to double down, dismissing her as someone interested in grandstanding rather than solutions. Crockett just smiled, not triumphantly, but sadly. I think our viewers can judge for themselves, Greg. And I think they just did. The aftermath that changed everything. Within minutes, social media exploded. Hashtag Crockett Destroys Gutfeld became the #1 trending topic worldwide. The clip was shared millions of times across every platform. But here's what made this moment truly historic. Crockett had managed to turn a racist attack into a policy discussion. Her criminal justice reform bill, which had been struggling for attention, suddenly became an overnight sensation. Within 48 hours, 3 more Republican senators signed on as co-sponsors, virtually guaranteeing its passage. 3 months later, the Criminal Justice Reform Act was signed into law, with Crockett standing directly behind President Biden during the ceremony. For Gutfeld, the aftermath was more complicated. While his ratings increased short-term as people tuned in to see his response, he lost significant viewership among moderate Republicans and independents. He'd become a liability for Fox News executives already dealing with multiple controversies. The lasting impact. But the real victory wasn't just political, it was cultural. Political consultants began advising clients to pull a Crockett when facing hostile interviews, meaning come prepared with research, facts, and a strategic response. For young people of color considering careers in politics, Crockett's performance became both inspiration and roadmap. She'd shown that dignity, preparation, and intelligence could triumph over privilege and platform. Most importantly, she'd proven it was possible to stand up to bullies without becoming one yourself. The lesson? Here's what this incredible confrontation taught us. When someone tries to silence you with discrimination and disrespect, the best response isn't to sink to their level. It's to rise above it with facts, preparation, and unwavering dignity. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself that night. She showed America a better way forward. She reminded us that in a democracy, the most powerful weapon against hatred isn't anger, it's intelligence. And sometimes all it takes is one person, properly prepared, to change the entire conversation.